program, the partnership. So there's a quite detailed analysis, and then we'll see in the upcoming discussion what is the willingness in the tripartite governance was to go through with.
But wasn't the question how to select this?
10 seconds. So if I follow what was discussed, so of course we haven't discussed these details yet because we first have to have an agreement of how we want to go forward. But then the selection of this external entity, my understanding is in most models, it would be the European Commission who launches this process.
Okay. So basically, we don't have any.
If I come back to an earlier point,
okay.
No, if I come back to an earlier point, which was mentioned, if one should wait now, what is happening with respect to future models and so on, my answer would be definitely no. What we need is not only this development at the EU level with the association, with the tripartite. We need development at institutional level, at national level. We have to find solutions for making our data fair and sharing them on a national level. If I'm not able within an institute or within my country to share services and data, then I'm not very hopeful that we can do this at the EU level. So every activity is welcome if you drive the process of a web of fair data and services on an institutional level or at the national level. And then we can federate all this at the EU level once this is existing.
Raimundas?
I have a different question. If we are talking about post-2027, maybe it's a good time for reflection. And do we have a knowledge, how much, or quantification, how much progress has been made in the directions that were set out by SRIA and by multi-annual roadmaps? Because they have the very concrete goals on the national, on the pan-European and institutional level. And is there, because the observatory measures this sort of EOSC readiness, but it's very few criteria. But I mean, before we start discussing the tasks, should we maybe have the lookout on what has been achieved and what is expected to be achieved, what is realistic to be achieved before the new policies take over?
Volker?
Yeah, so of course it would be always good to have all the elements on the table in order to decide how to go forward. Unfortunately, as Bertel also explained, the process of preparing the next framework program is starting next year. So we have to use a bit good foresight and what we know so far in order to plan the future. At the same time, we know from the AAP, for example, what is done by the institutions. We know from at the EU level, from our monitoring, what the engagement is and how this evolves. So I think we can be positive on in which direction we want to go, and then we have to use our best estimates in order to know how we want to go forward. Unfortunately, we cannot wait, for example, until the end of the procurement to see if this is how to go then further afterwards, because we have to make some decisions next year.
So if there are no more questions, I think that this is high time actually to move to the second part of this session dedicated to future of EOSC. So Volker, Karel, Bertil, thank you very much for your engaging presentations and for all your insights. And now I would like to invite to the floor our panelists who will take part in the next part of this session. Krzysztof Kurowski from Poznań Supercomputing and Networking Center, affiliated to Institute of Bioorganic Chemistry at the Polish Academy of Sciences. Volodymyr Noczwaj from Virtual Center for Digital Innovation, NOSC, URDIH Open Innovation Lab, Kiev Academic University, Center of the Ukraine National Grid for International Communication. Ernest Kacia from University of Malta, Department of Computer Information Systems. And next is Tatia Mtrparlidze from Ministry of Education and Science in Georgia. Next one is Ivan Maric. Ivan will join us online from University Computing Center, University of Zagreb. And our next speaker is Arturas Kaklauskas from Research Council of Lithuania, and Arturas will also join us online. Okay. Arturas, Ivan, can you hear me?
Hear me?
Yes?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That's great.
That's great.
I think that there is an echo. I can hear myself. Okay, now it's fine. So basically, we have seen 3 presentations about the future possible developments of EOSC in terms of the governance. We also saw details about the helicopter view and how the architecture of the EOSC is planned to be. So now I would like to discuss the implications of these potential developments for our national perspective. So I prepared a couple of questions. I would like to thank you very much for joining our panel. And my first question is, I would say, kind of warm-up. I mean, this will be a general question. Basically, how do you envision the EOSC governance beyond 2027? If there are 3 primary principles that should underlay this governance, what it should be, in your opinion? Tatia, maybe we can start with you.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, thank you for inviting me here. It's my pleasure. And it was very, very interesting sessions. So, of course, I'm speaking from the perspective of Georgia. And from this perspective, I still think about the present of EOSC in Georgia, because we have many challenges, and the future is dependent on these challenges, of course. The first and I think the most important thing that I want to underline, Karel mentioned national notes, which is a big problem in my country, because you know, there is a problem of coordination, of course. There are many institutions who have their own notes, something, but they either don't have information about EOSC. It happened, but it doesn't happen. It isn't happening now. But the coordination to think all of these institutions, to think about the national node from the perspective of national node, is still a big challenge. So I think that one of the most important things for EOSC governance should be to support the national nodes, not only on the institutional level, but on national level. I don't know if I express well what I want to say. So we have started with doing something similar when we created a national EOSC platform. It was initiative group, and we tried to gather all the institutions which are more or less connected with open science, and it worked, but not so well. So there are, I think that there are some mechanisms that will support and enable participation of the member states and associated states in EOSC platform. The most important challenge is this one, that unfortunately there is not enough support for the institutions and from the government, because it is actually it depends on the goodwill of the Ministry of Education and Science of the countries, you know. And if there will be some policy from the European Commission that will be more strict, that will it may sound bad, but will demand from the countries to develop the national nodes, the national platforms, the situation will be changed. Yeah, for now, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. If I understood well, your question was the three principles? All right, okay. So, talking from the point of view of the smallest country in the EU, I'm going to separate my personal feelings and the needs of my country from me acting as a scientist and thinking what's good for EOSC in a general sense, okay? What I think is good for EOSC in a general sense has been articulated in some way by my friend over here, by Carol, is that we understand that the quality of EOSC is going to be dependent very much upon what we're going to put into it. What we're going to put into it is going to be dependent very much on how we're going to sell it and the benefits that people are going to see when affronted by it and said, listen, this is what I can do more than I could do with the tools at my disposal at the moment. Therefore, flexibility is one of the things. One of the most important things. Should be as flexible as possible, allowing, as was said, people to join at any point with any degree of readiness, with any degree of governance at a local level that they may have. So flexibility has got to be on multiple levels. The other thing that's got to be there is it's got to be clear in what it can deliver, right? So in other words, what are the services, what's the value added that I'm going to gain from being part of EOSC? What's the value added that I'm going to gain maybe even in the future for financing directly or indirectly EOSC? So that kind of clarity of offerings has got to be there also. And another thing that should be there also is an understanding of what is the potential that I can get from EOSC. Not now, not what I can get from it now, but in the future, how can I grow with it, right? So it's going to grow. Well, that's the second point I said, right? The quality aspect, but it's going to grow. So how can I grow with it? How can I use it to grow with it, right? How can I show that my country, for some reason, is going to be better in the future if it's going to be part of this and not out of this, right? I don't quite agree with you when saying that I would like to see it being enforced from the top. My experience is that whenever there was enforcement from above, it always didn't work. It created a reaction to the action, and that wasn't always a positive thing, right? Because then you've got to prove a point, then you've got to show who you are or who you're not, and leads to a number of other things. So I think the bottom-up approach is the right way. It's the only way, I think, in which this can be done. It is the bottom it is, because every country has got its own structures. We are driven by the only university in the country. France is driven by universities, it's driven by research associations, by institutes and the centers, and you name it. When I looked at what's happening in France, my eyes went behind here. Right, and I'm sure other places in the world have got similar structures or varying degrees of structures, and it is these structures that are going to dictate how the membership, how the participation in this EOSC is going to happen. It cannot be dictated from the top. If you even try to dictate it from the top, it's going to fail. You're never going to get the model right. So it's got to be a bottom-up approach with inclusiveness based on my first point of flexibility. I don't know if that was clear or not, but anyway.
Hello, I am represent EOSC hub of Academy of Science of Ukraine, Kiev. You know about our situation, and from our experience, I could say that in war condition, efficient are very simple and very sophisticated decisions. Because from one side you have very quickly to have some tools to do something very quickly, and from other side you need some strategic tools that could help you on big distance. As in our community responsible for Digital Innovation Hub, so I could choose 3 principles that are important for me as from the point of view of Digital Innovation Hub. First, it's like 3 missions that I need to provide services together with EOSC. First is business orientation. So it's good to have some entity that provide some services that digital hub could propose to business. Second is research orientation, because if like in Georgia, we have very low level of financing, and our researchers in a very bad situation. And EOSC is one other way of doing research with in community, in research infrastructure, with other colleagues. So EOSC as a tool for doing research, where researcher or research community from Ukraine and Georgia could easily access to research infrastructure, to knowledge of colleagues. It could produce more strong invisible research in our countries, and I think that in Europe in general. So it will be more strong position for business to have such communities. And third is the social mission of EOSC as access to knowledge, access to digital tools for all citizens. And for this mission, I think that very good to have some support, continuous support from European Commission, because we need some nodes in countries, some general nodes that provide access to EOSC. But for sure, each country could have some additional nodes, thematic nodes that could finance by countries. But I think that at least one general node needs support from European Commission from the point of view of not rich countries like Ukraine and Georgia. Thank you.
So thank you for having me in this panel. So I agree that we should be flexible. I would add maybe that we should also apply agile techniques and to be really and support voices from different end users communities. We shouldn't reinvent the wheel. So we should not only reuse of data, but also reuse of different pieces of infrastructures that we have built over the last years or even decades. And then I think the third principle would be that we should gradually, add little by little, added value services and share best practices as soon as possible. Because as you suggested, we don't have to wait. We should really push not only top-down but bottom-up approaches.
Ivan, and the same question for you.
Thank you. I'm sorry not to be there, as tomorrow is the National HPC Competence Day in Croatia. So you see that I'm coming from e-infrastructure and coming from an organization that combines several coordination roles in this pan-European scene. And being involved in building pan-European e-infrastructure especially, but also e-ecosystem for the last 3 decades, I must say that I'm witnessing many of confederated actions started and done successfully or less successfully on European level. EOSC is the new one, but not starting from the EOSC, so we have a huge history in Europe of building research infrastructure, infrastructure, data infrastructure. And what I like over these 3 decades is basically that we are building on a European way. So Europeans, we have this already mentioned by several talkers, I think, 3-tier level, institutional, national, pan-European, sometimes regional model in Nordic countries and some others, but these are basically the 3-tier model. And any future governance, and like this one is basically in EOSC, have to have in account all these 3 levels: national, member state organization in current model, mandated organization, institutions or research community, research performing organization, and European Union or European Commission. So tripartite model for me is something that probably will hold in the future. But as said, with several others, no matter bottom-up, top-down approach, we foresee in this, I think that the usability of what we are building is the major impact factor. What this new model or web of fair data and care science, is it accepted and embraced by research community, but also by research funding organization and service providers will be there because we are there for the last couple of decades. And this is what I build in Croatia. What we are building in Croatia is basically, and I agree with those who are saying that we are very different in Europe, 40 different countries, 40 different models. And that basically I need a platform that we learn from each other, but this is the platform that I learn from each other on a different infrastructure, data infrastructure, research infrastructure over the decades. Karel mentioned some years ago a yin-yang model, and this is the infrastructure, data infrastructure, building skills, data skills, and this is the most important thing that the future governance should embrace. Now, combining 5 tasks is very difficult. I was involved in a pan-European governance structure of GEANT, EGI, mainly e-infrastructure, but combining development operations, innovations especially, and also networking. Returning me to the framework program structure when we had in a project joint research activity, service activity, and network activity, which was basically the package that creates the project and consortium around the project. This is something that the government dictate different kind of governance mechanism, and future EOSC governance should have, and currently I think we are on the track that have different mechanism to track or to tackle all of these 5 tasks, from General Assembly to special working groups to so the agility of EOSC governance should be developed further. to tackle the overall EOSC objectives which were set in the first three, I think, version 1.1 from 2021, reevaluate constantly these objectives, and then have efficient governance structure to tackle the innovation and what is happening, not just in research, but also industry, society, science, etc., etc. So this is my first statement.
Thank you, Ivan. And Arturas?
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
I would like. Now you can hear me?
Yes, yes, very well.
Yes. Thank you very much. If we put the two words on the Google search, for example, EOSC and survey, we will get more than 300,000 results. As people discuss today, there are a lot of proposals to use artificial intelligence, data mining, different analytics for increasing efficiency of EOSC. And one from this possibility is application of opinion mining or sentiment analysis, because when we are providing some survey, we're asking different peoples and get 100, 200, 300, 1,000 answers. But if we're using use opinion mining or sentiment analysis, we can get maybe 1 million opinions, 10 millions, 500 millions, and we can get these opinions and sentiments, emotions every day in real time. In this case, maybe in future also supplementary to use opinion mining or sentiment analysis in EOSC survey. Also was mentioned many times about possibilities to use artificial intelligence, also interactive open data, integrated databases, machine learning, and a lot of new intelligent and smart few trends. And my proposals in EOSC in future to use more open, smart, digital tools. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arturas. So now we are moving on further. So basically now we'll move on to the more specifically EOSC notes. And from your perspective, we have seen the helicopter view. What could be the main challenges in implementing the EOSC platform and then expanding to EOSC for data federation based on this nodes concept? And how do you think this should or might influence the EOSC governance? Tatia, you already started speaking, I think, mentioning the challenges. Yeah. I mean, so the question is if you want to add something or basically
Okay, so I will just add several words. My colleague from Ukraine already mentioned it. So for us, it's a little bit difficult to speak from the same perspective with the other European countries, because Ukraine is in war, and all of you know about it, and Georgia doesn't have the better situation because of political issues. So, but it's something else. So I just want to underline once again that it would be good if the countries like Georgia, Ukraine, maybe in the future Armenia or Caucasian countries, will have a little bit different support, flexible, more appropriate to the situation which are in these countries, right? So if it's very difficult to speak in Georgia about EOSC when the infrastructures, research infrastructures, are in not so good situation. So, okay, we have, there is a development, not so dramatic and tragic situation, but still, equality should be somehow achieved, I think, by the support of the other countries and by sharing the experience. It's very important for us. The notes concept seems very good, and it's it will be very successful if those notes exist in all countries. So, but still, I think that from my perspective, from Georgian perspective, you disagreed me, but you know, when we fill in the surveys, if European Union demands something, we do this. Yeah, it works like this in Georgia. So I don't know how it works in other countries, but I think that in many Mediterranean countries it works. So. Yeah. From our perspective, if there will be more, not demand, but more support kind of demand from the top, we will do everything perfectly. So that's what I wanted to say.
Works. I suppose it's the same question for me, right? Yes. Main challenge, again, I'm going to refrain from speaking from the point of view of what challenges us, because we're very different than the rest of the EU, different from Ukraine, different from you also, we're unique. Yeah. But I'm going to talk again from the point of view of reasoning. And I think one of the challenges for EOSC is going to be making people understand that they have to use it. Making people understand why they're going to use it. Making people move away from what they already do. We're talking about a community. I mean, let's face it, these are researchers, they're academics. They're the people who are going to be using it mostly, all right? Even if you go to research institutions like industries, it's still at the end of the day, bottom line, it's academics who are there. Right? So this research is going to be done by academics, and they are already well established. They've already published a lot. They've established their sources. They've established their ways of verifying what they do. They've established their peer-reviewed networks. They've established all of this. How are you going to get them to move to something that is, even if it's going to be unifying, it's different. There's always going to be that resistance to change. It's always going to be there. The other thing is, as soon as you start talking about the word, I don't know how, in other places, but I say federation, okay? People start saying, oh, Star Trek, the Federation. You know, so there's going to be Big Brother who's going to be watching me and telling me what I'm going to do. You know, so we've got to overcome also the barrier of people thinking that this is going to be some form of straitjacketing, some form of control, some form of imposition of standardization on the way they do work. It's a bit like software engineering. That's where I come from. That's who I am. And when you actually tell developers, you've got to use a model X and model Y, to describe what you are trying to build in your head. And people say, well, I'm going to use a model weight, so I'm going to lose my creativity. No, you're not going to lose your creativity. So you're not going to lose your strength to do research by being with EOSC. You're going to improve that, right? But all I'm saying is that this standard, this structure, requires some form of framework for it to work. And for the framework to exist, it requires some form of let's say, management, to use a mild word. And that is the way you've got to try to overcome that sort of resistance to change that is trying to, that permeates the community in which you're going to work. Again, I repeat, the quality of the thing is in what you're going to be putting into it, unfortunately. We're not building a car, we're not building a bridge, we're building something that is going to be as good as the people who are going to be putting stuff into it. So you need the people to be putting stuff into it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ernest.
I have two main points. First is about node concept. I found it very perspective because it's some network of that share best practice on open science and share technologies. And from this point of view, I think it's good to have some model of these nodes, like Digital Innovation Hub. When I have a lot of just frameworks and I use it and it works. And here also important that through the nodes the local community could access, for example, how to use some research infrastructure, where to find some data, how to develop a data management plan. So it's some framework should be accessible through this node. And for thematic nodes, it's the same, but more deeply in science. Second point about fair data federation. It's connected questions, but we all, I think, very interested in to have such data flows, research data flows, because we have some, I don't know, something like competition with open data, governmental data, with business data, and the role of research data, I think, is possible to be very important just because of this federation. Because I don't know, in Ukraine it's we have a very developed open data, but research data is just not nothing at now. But I think this is a very good way to change the situation in all the country, and benefits will be for all, even for business, because business also. I have experience to work with data sharing and data space, but they need research data, because without research, the data not so proved, because it's they have data, but they don't know the real value of data, real quality of this data. But when they have additional research source, it's very good, and I think the demand from business on this. Thank you.
So, as I already mentioned, the EOSC nodes concept fits perfectly to what we here in Poland as NREN has already identified, our strategic movement, and this is what we are planning to do in the future. The main challenges I see, there are probably many of them from the technical, semantic, legal, organizational perspectives. But I also agree that the trust that we have to establish between the ecosystem that we are planning to build and end users, so researchers, this is the most critical, because if they will not trust the services that we offer. They will not use those services, and at the end, they will decide, which services will survive. And I believe that good best practices and good standards will survive.
Thank you, Ivan.
Ivan?
Well, thank you again. Nothing new from this part of the Europe. Basically, we were part of the EOSC 5B project on EFOS with the aim to establish National Open Science Cloud initiative in our countries. If you recall, 5B was pre-EOSC phase of projects run by Horizon 2020. And basically what we've done is continuation, evaluation of what we are doing for the last 2 decades in building national components of infrastructure, data infrastructure, and especially digital education or skills around this. On top of that, in Croatia tomorrow, I have also my presentation. We build national CRIS model. So basically we have a huge amount of. Before that, we established national RDA node in open area, etc., and too many ERICs. So we didn't reinvent anything. We use what we already have, and all of these are candidates for a national EOSC nodes. Now, the major problem probably would be how to explain to people that today you are also another flag. You have another label, EOSC nodes. It's something that I agree with many of my colleagues from the table is basically that for the researcher, but also for minister, for rector, for anyone, it is what the EOSC bring to me, to my business, to my research, to my education, and usability of EOSC is the most important. So national nodes will be the first step to prove this usability of what we are together building in 3-tier model institution, national, pan-European. My belief is that we should start much before we get young scientists, practitioners at research institutes. We should start from higher education, and that's why I pretty much advocate connectivity among research sector and higher education sector in Croatia, and starting with sharing or promoting the culture or principle of open science at early stage at the university level. And the whole concept of open science, EOSC is just the tool for open science. It basically relies on culture of sharing, and this is not what you can change in a researcher 50+ year. This is what you build with the younger generation. What EOSC now is doing is basically setting the path for something I see as in a new decade or new generation that is coming, and 2027 is not a milestone for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. Arturas?
Thank you. Currently, we have a lot of challenges of EOSC. For example, unmanageable volume of open data, bad open data that leads to bad results, deal with multiple formats, multiple sources or integration hardness, high cost of open data projects and infrastructure, scattered big open data talent in-house and in the market, slow time to insight, and a lot of others. And of course, we can together solve the various EOSC problems, as I spoke before, by applying the newest technologies and newest trends. For example, such distributed machine learning and emerging artificial intelligence techniques to extract and analyze new valuable information, artificial intelligence and machine learning, for example, that are most hyper data analytics, future trends, and by applying it, we can get more efficient and accurate predictions and insight, and of course integration between various data, various aspects, various countries, In this case, we can be more productive, more efficient, because one of the main things, how is possible to be more productive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, because we are running quite late, I have to say, I will ask maybe the last questions, but then maybe I would like to give the voice to the audience, because I assume that there might be some questions or some comments. So the last question will be about the scenarios. I mean, we have seen the hybrid scenarios, we have seen the integrated scenarios. I know that the discussion is going to be developed next year, and I know that this is a very complex topic, but are there any advantages, disadvantages which you see in each category or in specific scenarios presented? Oh, Tatia or Ernest? Oh.
Okay.
Okay, I could start.
Oh, thank you.
For me, I prefer hybrid scenario. As I said, business mission, service oriented. It should be some maybe public or business entity that professionally provides the services and integrate all providers. Second, research mission. I think it's could be both for some Horizon project and national funds. And social mission, I think it should be on Euro Commission financing. Thank you.
So I don't have a strong opinion and many like a strong preference on a specific scenario, but what I would like to see in the future is that any scenario that we will at the end select will enable to develop and progress with the same speed in different countries, and I think this is really important. To really take care, not only, especially having small countries, to really think about scenarios in which also small countries or less developed countries, they may have also many problems with the core digital infrastructures, that they can quickly jump and be included in this process.
I tend to adopt a simple approach, Occam's approach, to most of my reasoning. And here I reason a straightforward way. The core has got to be stable. The core has got to be resilient. The core doesn't undergo, let's put this, as much change as the outer layers do. So the core has got to be something that has got to be delegated to someone who can focus on maintaining the reliability of infrastructure that one is after, full stop. Level above that, the level that has to do with development, innovation, that can be shared, should be, as was mentioned, can be shared both by the people who are maintaining the core, but it's very important that that layer has got to be left as open as possible. As open as possible, even to cater for, as the gentleman before me said, the notion of flexibility for the various participants now and in the future and who knows when. And I think that's going to make it extremely strong. The other thing that we should have in place also, as was mentioned by one of the gentlemen online, I forgot exactly who the person was, is that if we're looking at value added, AI is the way ahead. I see in my dreams, it's not because I have those dreams always, I'm not that kind of person, but I think about, my fantasies are, imagine if EOSC had to grow into a community, a data community of research, large enough, and couple that with something like ChatGPT. What would be the potential there? Could it actually start doing research? I think it would. It's dangerous, yes. I'm not saying is it dangerous or not. Right? But basic research, Basic research, I think it can start doing. Innovation is another thing. But basic research one. Now, if we want to see something that is maybe, it's not, no, I'm talking not the future around the corner, talking about the future, right? We want to see something that is going to excite developers, especially digital ones, showing the potential of creating a federated set of information encompassing at the level of nodes, at the level of institutions, at the level of nations, at the level of the EU, at the level of even EU with the rest of the world, and then coupling that with AI techniques. Now, I just used ChatGPT as an example, okay, because there are others out there, right? And offering that as a service also would raise the researcher to a level above what they are now. Just like when you used to program, those of you who are as old as I am, when you used to program with the assembly language or with something like Fortran or Pascal, and then now we're programming with Python, right? A lot of the stuff that we used to think about algorithmically before, we're not thinking about it anymore. You get the module and you use it, and that's it. But now you can think of things at a higher level. And this is the view that I see for the future. View and a challenge at the same time also.
Thank you, Ernest.
Actually, I have nothing to add except for just one question. Integrated and hybrid scenarios, which one would be more stable in case if in these 2 years, which is maybe not realistic, but in case if in these 2 years the reality, EOSC reality will be changed. So, for example, if let's mention again Georgia and Ukraine, if we become important.
You mean that it would provide more inclusiveness, for instance,
yeah.
in case that readiness will be like more in place for you to join? I mean, like the.
So the change in the change, I mean everything. So.
Okay. I mean, yes. I mean, but you know, the general.
The dangers as well as the progress, everything. So, which one is more flexible? I think that you should think about it as well.
Thank you, Tatia. Ivan?
After Ernest's thoughts always guide me to another direction, I forgot the question, but probably it's about these models, options that we are facing. As mentioned, it will be on 28 November, the final discussion. I see that Karel is very passionate about 2F model. Well, I'm running the computing center and building infrastructure for many years, so I know that development and operation cannot be separated because you cannot nowadays